Goods produced, without question, is the strongest single economic modifier you can get in this game. Not only does it literally boost your production in every single province by a percentage increase, it also has massive impacts on the trade value your provinces generate, leading to a double effect on both production income and trade income. See, this is where production efficiency as a metric falls short. It only increases production income, and trade efficiency falls short by only increasing trade income. Goods produced is truly the be-all and end-all of economic modifiers, directly increasing the two best sources of money in this game, production and trade. This is how true wealth in EU4 is achieved. Well, that and trade steering, and today we're going to stack it. Thankfully, global warming hasn't been invented yet, so that shouldn't be a concern, and either way, we should be rich enough to build a new planet by the end of this anyway. Disclaimers, we got a couple. We are going for global goods produced percentage buff. This means things like manufactories or other sources of flat goods produced, like trade company investments, are not going to be counted. Furthermore, that means deving your land to 500 production clicks is also not a factor, because it doesn't give you percentage goods produced. To add on to that, it has to be either, well, a global modifier, or it must be possible to get it globally. For example, prosperity. Prosperity provides 25% local goods produced on the state, but you can have prosperity in every province. Another example is actually the 10% goods produced you get from being a production leader. This is something we're not including, because you can get production leader on every single trade good in the game. However, there is one exception, gold. You can't become the production leader of gold, and hence never gain the 10% goods produced from being the production leader of gold. As such, it's not a global modifier of goods produced, as gold is immune, and therefore will not be included in this list. Another thing that must be mentioned is domination. See, domination gave a lot of countries very fancy new mission trees, namely Poland and Prussia. But the old Poland and the old Prussian mission trees both included 10% goods produced in their missions, which the new ones do not. This means that in theory we can gain more goods produced by going down a patch and using those mission trees there. However, I personally will not be included in this route, and as such, they will not be included here. So if you are happy to disable DLC, feel free to do that and get another 20% goods produced from those two sources. Now, this may seem rather restrictive in the amount of things that we're allowed to do, but I'm going to promise you right now, there's a lot more shenanigans that we're going to be doing here. I've had to reroute this thing 4 times now, so this video's taken an extra while. Otherwise, to finish off the disclaimers, standard setup, no custom nations. Let's go. Almost forgot, let's get those counters on the screen, permanent on the bottom and theoretical limit on the top. With that done, time for me to shill to increase the like and sub counter as always, but with the sub promotion out of the way, let's get into the video itself. Our story, much like admin efficiency, begins in Dipmartian. Now, Dipmartian is going to give us 2 things. First of all, we're going to conquer the concept of bread, which is going to give us 20% goods produced until the end of the game. Since you are also starting at Dipmartian, may as well break the chains for 5 admin efficiency until the end of the game as well, because why not? Another thing that we're going to keep from the Dipmartian setup, as it were, is going to be the free farmers national idea for 10 goods produced. There are 20 goods produced in ideas, namely from GB or Germany. However, most of those things are actually not acquirable for us now, as they're end tags and they're not end tags that we're forming. We're forming a different end tag for a lot more goods produced than an extra 10, but that does mean that we don't have access to that 20, and the same can be said for the other 15% goods producers that a couple ideas have. This means we need a source of 10 goods produced, and since Dipmartian has 10 goods produced in their starting ideas, we don't need to worry about forming any other ideas. You can go grab another idea set if you really want, but I'd actually recommend keeping Dipmartian. Not only do you have 10 morale and 10 shock damage received for your military buffs, you also have some infantry compatibility to add to it, and for all of your multiplayer enjoyers out there, there's even 10% dev cost. But with the self-shilling for Dipmartian, my favourite EU4 country to this day, out of the way, let's get into Savoy. Savoy is going to give us another 10 goods produced from the mission powerhouse of the Norse, which again gives 10 goods produced as well as an extra 5 admin efficiency, meaning so far you start the route off with 10 admin efficiency because why not? Our next stepping point, however, is going to be Poland. Now, again, as previously mentioned, if we had the old Polish missions, there would have been a Polish Golden Age mission, which while during our Golden Age would have provided us with some extra buffs, including but not limited to an extra 10 goods produced. However, we're in Poland for a different reason, the Polish Age ability. And this is where it gets interesting. See, the Polish Age ability ends with the end of the Age of Reformation. Now, the Age of Reformation begins when Protestantism is enabled, nothing too complicated there. However, we would like it to not end. And the Age of Absolutism begins when global trade has been discovered. Now, global trade is a fascinating institution for many reasons, but one of the main fascination points is the fact that when global trade has not spawned, if you have the largest trade node in the world, it's quite doable, albeit still a bit finicky, to prevent it from spawning. Namely, to get 2 other vassals and give them 30% of your trade node and keep 30% for yourself. This will lose you a lot of money, naturally, from trade, however it's going to have a secondary effect. No one is going to be the strongest trade power in the richest trade node. So as long as the richest trade node remains the richest trade node, global trade will not spawn. So that means no Age of Absolutism, and hence no Age of Revolutions. So there we go, Age of Reformations forever, woo! There is, however, one small problem. What is that problem? Coal. See, coal gives us access to furnaces, and furnaces give us access to, well, goods produced from furnaces, which is quite good. There is, however, a slight issue with that. They need enlightenment. There's 2 approaches here. The first thing that comes to mind is former England, and we will be former England later for an event. Early industrialization enables coal if we've embraced manufactories and have reached Admin Tech 23. The main issue with that plan is this: manufactories does require global trade to be present to spawn, and this is of course going to require, well, global trade spawning, hence the age ending. This does mean that realistically there's no way of getting coal, either through the Enlightenment method or the manufacturer's earlier method with England, without first getting global trade, and this will of course naturally end the age. So what is the second way of getting both the Polish age ability up and all of your coal manufactories up at the same time? Well, it's bad, but outside of an incredible amount of prep work, it's doable. So what do you need to do? We need to delay global trade as planned previously, and we need to delay it until the 1700s. So until the 1700s, keep delaying global trade. While you're waiting for the 1700s, with the Polish age ability up, there's a bit of setup we need to do, and by a bit I mean a lot. First of all, coal. There's 59 coal provinces in the entire world, and you're going to need all of them. The most difficult one's actually going to be the New World. Namely, these 5 in America and these 3 in Canada. If you own more than 5 provinces in any of these regions, you will form a colonial nation. Therefore, you have 2 options. Either move your capital to the New World and become a New World boy, that's doable, but effort. Or you can have any of these wonderful little tribesmen, or whatever you have going on here, make them your vassal and feed them the rest of the land. You can also take a colonial buddy, like if you grab Brittany and something and feed them the land in the New World. That can also work, but be aware they are just going to form their own colonial nations as well, so you need a buddy with a capital in the New World that you can feed and core off next to. Then make sure you never own more than 4 provinces there, so you can keep owning these wonderful coal mines. Same again goes for Canada, and the same goes for down here in, well, America. There's only 1 coal province to worry about in Africa, and there's a lot, especially in the Siberia region, to grab in terms of coal. A bit of coal in northern China, and a touch of coal in India, and, well, even a bit in Australia and New Zealand. The main thing, of course, is you need to also have, well, Europe on lockdown at this point, since there's a lot of coal in Europe. So, yeah, do get on that. So, what you'll need to do is wait until the 1700s, and make sure you've met all the requirements for both global trade to spawn, manufactories to spawn, which honestly isn't that hard, just have some 15 development provinces with manufactories, and have all the prerequisites for enlightenment ready to go. What you will then have to do is, while the Age of Reformation is continuing, annex your 2 vassals, your 2 subjects that you have that are preventing global trade from spawning. So you spawn global trade, then as that happens, you need to have loads of monarch points saved up. I recommend dip banking with culture conversions, and just dev all the global trade immediately everywhere to embrace it right away, which will allow you to spawn manufacturing, since global trade will be present, which you then have to, again, dip bank and do all the things you need monarch points to spawn manufacturing right away, which will allow enlightenment to spawn, and at which point you will use all your final dip that you've saved up this whole time, and pre-dev your coal mines to dev every single one of the 59 coal mines. Again, dev them with admin and mill first, so you can just dip dev them with the dip you've banked from culture conversions, dip dev all 59 of them to enlightenment, and dip dev yourself to enlightenment, embrace the enlightenment institution. You need to do this within a time window of 10 years. Now, this time window gets rather tighter as well. England has an event, this one on screen, which also gives you goods produced. However, that event cannot happen after the 1700s, so you need to time it with this English event as well. So yes, we do need to be forming England straight after Poland. So within that time zone, you need to pop this event, get it going, have every single coal province become coal, and finish building your coal furnaces on them to get the goods produced on each one. If you do all that, you'll be able to get 295% goods produced from coal, and you'll be able to get to the 33% goods produced from the opponent age ability, albeit now is going into the temporary category, because at the end of the day, that's just going to be running out. The March of Enlightenment and the Age of Revolutions is going to be happening now. Sorry about that. Now, in England, I'd recommend getting some other permanent end-of-the-game buffs. Here's some minimum autonomy territories, dip annexation cost. Here's some discipline for your marines and some shock damage received for them. And even some trade efficiency and global tariffs, if that's what you're into, as well as some production efficiency and trade efficiency for your colonial subjects. But we're not done with our formables. See, you can form England and gain access to these missions, but you don't need to form GB to gain access to these missions, which does mean England is not an end tag, giving us access to all these wonderful things previously mentioned, meaning that what we can now go ahead and do is form Rajputana. Now, I've tagged into Mewar because they have their missions, because we are here for their missions, and we are here for one thing and one thing only, conquering Punjab, which is going to give us 10 goods produced and 10 manpower recovery for 30 years. Remarkably, this isn't the only mission we're going to be popping that gives us goods produced for conquering Punjab, because we have the end tag ahead of us. The end tag of the Mughal Empire. Now, the Mughal Empire has an insane amount of things going for it. One of those things being the Mughal culture assimilation. We'll need to assimilate everyone from southern India to gain 5 goods produced permanently, since we're not going to be getting rid of that buff. However, that's not the only reason we're forming the Mughals. Unfortunately, you cannot flip to be a theocracy to get the 10 goods produced from monastic breweries. However, you still have access to the lock-in proviso for another 5% dev cost and 5 goods produced modifier from that. This is where I mentioned that actually Russia is better if you're looking at permanent goods produced. They gain 10 goods produced permanently and 30 temporarily from their missions, versus the Mughals gaining 50, albeit temporarily, goods produced from their missions. Okay, but I'm getting distracted. On the topic of the Mughal missions, you can secure the Hajj ports for 10 goods produced, go on a campaign down to Bengal for another 10 goods produced and more manpower recovery, crack open China with the boys for another 10 goods produced and 20 trade efficiency for 25 years, as well as making your way down to the diamond mines of Golconda for 1,000 ducats, which probably doesn't matter too much to you, as well as another 10% goods produced. Furthermore, if you grab the coast of Coromandel, there's another 10 goods produced and 5 global trade modifier. This mission, of course, also gives you 10% admin efficiency until the end of the game, so if you're on the admin efficiency hunt, why not? You will have to re-annex the massive subject that you release here, so bear that in mind. So let's move on to that. What else can we pick up for goods produced? Well, first of all, our ruler can become industrious. We can grab the economic hegemony for 25% goods produced, just why not? We've mentioned the coal mines, but at this point I hope you're trading coal as well for another 10 goods produced, as well another 10 goods produced from the Dutch polders. This is another point where to mention again, if you're production leader in every single trade good, you can get 10% goods produced from that on every single trade good. Unfortunately, you can't be production leader in gold, so I'm not including it, but you may as well if you're doing this yourself. You'll get 10 goods produced on everything you care about. Finally, we are Sunni, but that doesn't give you goods produced. We need to become Ibadi to get 10% goods produced from that. Now, let's talk ideas. Bear in mind, we should have kept Diplomatic ideas this whole time. Pick up Plutocratic for 10 goods produced from free subjects. Oh, and naturally goes without saying, make sure you pick up Plutocratic while you can still change your government freely before you form the Mughals, since that kind of locks you into being, not a republic. Then pick up Economic for 10 goods produced from the finisher there, Quantity, Trade, Infrastructure, Naval, Religious, and then weirdly enough, Aristocratic. Now, Aristocratic you don't need to fill out, you may as well, but you actually need it just to pop an event. Regardless, the policies we're looking for are religious-sponsored guilds for missionary strength and goods produced, the Transportation Act for production efficiency and goods produced, the Production Quota Act for 15 goods produced, and the Global Trade Network for another 10 goods produced and global trade power as well. This should give us a pretty nice 45 goods produced modifier permanently. Furthermore, make sure you have your Golden Age ready to pop, and then you need to find a horde or anyone else that's willing to make you a tributary. In this case, that might even be China, but that's going to be quite difficult. You need to become someone's tributary. Maybe do this early if you want to, but basically you to be someone's tributary, as this will allow you to get to this event here, where you start a smuggling ring into your overlord, which you'll be able to support for another 10 goods produced. You then get another 10 goods produced from, properly exploiting your serfs, which is ironic, since you're getting 10 goods produced from not exploiting your serfs, so your subjects are free to produce things and also free to be properly exploited. This is unusual, but you know what, I've stopped asking questions a while ago. And finally, there's this infrastructure event for another 5 goods produced. And lest we forget, make sure you also get prosperity everywhere for another 25 goods produced from that. But there we go, that actually concludes all the goods produced sources in this game. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next one. Bye!